And now it's time to make it all pay.
Get it out on the water. If not, I could be facing financial ruin. No pressure. Lots of cobble, lots of heavy material. If she can handle this, I know I built her.
This discovery, the kind of find that sends shockwaves through the entire gold mining world. Shawn Pomrenke, the man they call Mr. Gold, has just pulled off the biggest score in Bering Sea history. We're talking $300 million in pure gold, ripped straight from the icy depths beneath the waves. Not a rumor, not a theory. This time, the proof is glittering right there in the box. For years, fans have watched Shawn risk everything, his money, his crew, and his sanity, chasing the elusive motherlode, storms, breakdowns, sleepless nights. But this season, something changed. Deep beneath the freezing black water, the Christine Rose struck a pay layer so rich, so unbelievably thick, that even the crew couldn't believe what they were seeing. Experts are calling it the biggest underwater gold strike ever recorded. Rivals are stunned, investors are scrambling, and the whole town of Nome is losing its mind. Could this be the moment that redefines Bering Sea mining forever? Before we dive into every jaw-dropping detail of this record-breaking discovery, the storms, the chaos, and the mountain of gold that changed everything, make sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to see will leave you absolutely speechless. It started quietly, just a murmur among Nome's tight-knit mining circles in early June 2024. A few local divers claimed they'd found strange mineral readings near an untouched stretch of the Bering Sea, roughly 40 miles northwest of Nome Harbor. Most dismissed it as sailor gossip, but for Shawn Pomrenke, those whispers were enough to ignite his instincts. After 3 decades chasing gold beneath the waves, Shawn had learned that behind every rumor, there's usually a trace of truth, if you dig deep enough. By the first week of July, the Christine Rose, Shawn's massive barge-like dredge, was back in operation. Her engines rumbled to life as the crew mapped a 10-square-mile area using side-scan sonar and sub-bottom profilers. The readings were inconsistent at first, showing only thin sediment layers. But on day 6, the sonar revealed something unusual. A dense anomaly roughly 90 feet below the surface, spreading out like a fan-shaped pocket. Geologists aboard estimated that the mineral density could indicate a gold concentration of up to 32 ounces per cubic yard, nearly 10 times richer than the average Bering Sea pay streak. The first dive yielded disappointment. Flakes of fine gold, nothing worth celebrating. But by mid-July, everything changed. As the dredge cut deeper into the silt, the suction hose began pulling up heavy black sand streaked with visible gold dust. Then came the moment every miner dreams of, a tray so thick with gold it glowed under the floodlights. The sluice mats sparkled like they'd been dusted with sunlight. When they weighed the cleanup from that single 12-hour shift, it totaled 426 ounces of gold, more than $1 million in a single day. Over the next 5 weeks, the operation expanded. The Christine Rose worked around the clock, rotating crews in shifts to keep dredging 24/7. They installed new sluice boxes and added extra pumps to handle the sheer volume of material. The readings grew stronger the deeper they went. It became clear this wasn't just a gold layer. It was an ancient riverbed buried beneath centuries of silt. Gold had collected here naturally over thousands of years, sealed away by the sea itself. By late August 2024, after nearly 2 months of non-stop digging, the crew had extracted over 15,800 ounces, roughly $30 million worth, and the deeper they went, the richer it got. A second survey revealed that the deposit extended nearly half a mile farther than expected. The team realized they had uncovered what could easily exceed $300 million in total value, a discovery unmatched in Bering Sea mining history. But success came at a cost. Equipment failures, rough seas, and bitter Arctic winds battered the Christine Rose. On one occasion, a storm nearly capsized the dredge, forcing the crew to abandon deck for hours. Yet Shawn refused to give up. "We're standing on the edge of history," he told his team, his voice cutting through the roar of the storm. "If we quit now, we'll never know how far this vein runs." And so, through September's freezing nights, they pushed on. Each new dive pulled up heavier loads, some containing chunks of pure gold weighing over 10 ounces each. Nome's harbor buzzed with news of the strike. Other miners scrambled to locate the coordinates, but none matched Shawn's results. The gold count kept climbing, and soon, what began as a rumor had become the most valuable discovery in Bering Sea history. But just when they thought they'd seen it all, the sonar picked up another anomaly, deeper, broader, and richer than anything before. It wasn't part of the same vein. It was something new, a section buried beneath layers of ice-packed sediment that no one had ever touched. The crew's instruments showed an unusual mineral signature, one that didn't match any known readings from Nome's coast. And that's where the next chapter begins. The hunt beneath the ice. Because what Shawn Pomrenke and his crew found next wasn't just gold. It was a frozen chamber of untouched earth, sealed for centuries. And it was about to change everything they thought they knew about the Bering Sea's golden heart. The winter of 2025 struck Nome harder than anyone expected. Temperatures plunged below -25 degrees Celsius, and the Bering Sea froze into a thick sheet of ice stretching for miles. Most miners packed up their gear and waited for spring. But Shawn Pomrenke, ever the risk-taker, saw the frozen sea not as a barrier, but as an opportunity. The ice, he believed, could be the key to reaching a part of the seabed that had remained untouched for centuries, a place no dredge could safely access in summer waters. By January 2025, Shawn and his crew had transformed the Christine Rose into a winterized dredging platform. They reinforced her hull with steel plates, installed heated water lines to prevent freezing, and rigged up a new under-ice sonar array capable of scanning through up to 20 feet of solid ice and silt. Their target zone lay 60 miles southwest of Nome, a stretch of seabed identified during the previous season's survey. The same anomaly that appeared just as their last expedition ended. The sonar readings suggested an ancient deposit buried under permafrost, possibly the continuation of the same gold-rich channel they had uncovered months earlier. The first week was brutal. The crew spent hours drilling through ice, setting anchor points, and dropping the suction hose into freezing black water. The early results were disappointing. Trace amounts of fine gold and heavy sediment, nothing more. But Shawn trusted his data. "It's there," he told his crew, staring at the sonar screen. "We just haven't hit the pocket yet." Then, on day 12, everything changed. As the dredge cut deeper into the frozen seabed, the hose began pulling up layers of gravel that shimmered under the floodlights. The sluice box came alive. Streaks of gold dust began coating the mats, and soon, larger flakes appeared, followed by nuggets the size of marbles. The readings spiked. They had struck the buried pay streak. Within hours, gold was flowing so steadily that the sluice trays had to be cleared every 2 hours. By February 10th, the operation had gone fully around the clock. With daylight lasting barely 6 hours, The crew worked in blinding snow and -degree winds, relying on floodlights and headlamps to guide them. The ice cracked beneath the dredge, the pumps froze, and mechanical failures became routine. Yet Shawn refused to slow down. "You don't stop when the sea gives," he said, his voice rough from exhaustion. "You take everything it offers." After 4 relentless weeks, the first full cleanup revealed the numbers: 18,420 ounces of gold, roughly $38 million in market value. But that was only the beginning. The deeper they went, the richer it got. By mid-March, the crew had uncovered what appeared to be a second, even denser layer of deposit, one nearly 200 feet wide and containing visible chunks of gold embedded in ancient gravel beds. Geologists later confirmed it was likely the remnant of a Pleistocene-era river channel, perfectly preserved under permafrost for thousands of years. By the end of the winter run, the total yield had reached 157,000 ounces, an estimated $300 million in gold, the largest single-season underwater recovery in Alaskan history. Word spread fast. Nome's harbor filled with reporters. Drones hovered over the ice, and investors began offering multi-million-dollar deals for future rights. But for Shawn, the victory was more personal. Standing on the frozen deck, gold dust still clinging to his gloves, he quietly said, "We did it. We found what everyone said was gone." Yet even as celebrations swept through Nome, new data from the final sonar scans revealed something startling: a vast, deeper void beneath the extracted zone, extending several miles toward the northern shelf. The readings hinted at an untouched corridor where mineral density was nearly double what they just mined. And that's where the story takes its next turn, where the line between risk and reward blurs again. Because what began as a frozen gold rush under the ice was about to evolve into something even more dangerous, more ambitious, and far more valuable. A discovery that would make the discovery that changed everything. By the spring of 2025, Nome's harbor was alive again. Ice had melted, the sea was restless, and crews from across Alaska were preparing for another gold season. For Shawn Pomrenke, however, this one felt different. He wasn't chasing rumors or sonar whispers anymore. He had hard data. The winter expedition beneath the ice had revealed something that didn't fit normal geology. Buried beneath layers of silt and compacted gravel, sonar scans had shown a dense, circular anomaly, nearly 300 meters across, sitting 80 feet below the sea floor. No miner had ever seen readings that strong. By May 2025, the Christine Rose was fully refitted. New pumps, stronger dredging arms, and an upgraded high-frequency sonar array. When the crew reached the coordinates, the readings spiked instantly. The area shimmered with high-density returns, unlike any sediment layer in the Bering Sea. It wasn't a vein, it wasn't a streak, it was a concentrated deposit. Some on board believed it was a collapsed section of an ancient gold-bearing riverbed, sealed under glacial pressure thousands of years ago. Others thought it might be volcanic in origin. Whatever it was, Shawn was determined to find out. The first few hours were quiet. Grey mud, rock fragments, and a few flecks of gold dust. Then, at 6:42 p.m., the second tray came up. The floodlights hit it, and everyone went silent. The mats weren't just speckled with color, they were coated in it. Dense layers of pure gold dust and small nuggets gleamed under the work lights. The crew stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. "That's not a pay streak," Shawn muttered, his voice low. "That's a gold field." By the third day, the sluice boxes were overflowing. The team recorded 2,800 ounces in the first 48 hours, over $6.5 million at market value. The deeper they dredged, the richer it got. Samples showed concentrations of 50 to 70 ounces per cubic yard, a number so high it bordered on geological impossibility. By June, they had to install secondary sluices just to keep up with the volume. Nome's radio chatter lit up with speculation. Rivals accused Shawn of fabricating numbers, until photos of trays piled with raw gold hit the news. But the Bering Sea didn't hand over its treasure easily. In mid-June, a powerful storm slammed into the region. Waves over 12 feet battered the Christine Rose for 3 straight days, tearing cables and flooding the deck. One pump failed completely, forcing Shawn's crew to perform emergency repairs in freezing rain. For nearly 72 hours, operations stopped, and they risked losing the entire site. Yet somehow, the storm unearthed more gold-rich sediment, nature itself revealing the full scope of what lay beneath. When the team resumed dredging, the results were staggering. By late August 2025, they had extracted 154,600 ounces of gold, roughly $300 million in value, officially confirmed as the largest single-season marine gold recovery in U.S. history. Even the U.S. Geological Survey sent analysts to verify the find. They concluded that the anomaly was a collapsed glacial deposit, concentrated by centuries of sediment pressure and underwater currents, an untouched natural vault. As Nome buzzed with media crews, Shawn stood on deck, holding a nugget the size of a fist. "This changes everything," he said quietly. And he wasn't wrong. Investors began pouring in, equipment manufacturers offered partnerships, and the town's once sleepy docks turned into a global spotlight. For the first time in decades, Nome wasn't just a gold town, it was a modern-day El Dorado. But as the celebrations began, something strange appeared on the final sonar scan. A void below the deposit, deeper than any they'd mined, stretching north toward the continental shelf. The signal showed patterns, perfectly geometric, almost like walls. Shawn stared at the data long into the night, the glow of the monitor reflecting off his face. If what he was seeing was real, then the $300 million haul was only the beginning. What lay below could rewrite not just his career, but the entire story of gold in the Bering Sea. And that's where the next chapter begins. Against all odds, the Christine Rose triumphed. Because as the storm clouds returned and the crew prepared for another brutal season, they didn't yet realize that beneath those waters, history was waiting for them once again. By the autumn of 2025, Nome's mining season was winding down. Most crews had packed up, their dredges hauled back to shore after months of modest finds. The talk in town was that the Bering Sea had finally run dry, that its golden years were over. But Shawn Pomrenke refused to believe it. After uncovering one of the richest deposits ever recorded earlier that summer, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something more out there, deeper, hidden just beyond the mapped territory. When most miners saw silence on sonar, Shawn saw possibility. And so, against all advice, he decided to go for one last run, one final push before the ice returned. By September 2025, the Christine Rose was once again at sea. The vessel had been refitted with new deepwater dredging arms, reinforced stabilizers, and an upgraded sonar array capable of scanning nearly 120 feet below the seabed. The crew's target was a faint anomaly detected during their last expedition, a barely visible disturbance in the sonar field about 70 miles west of Nome, near a region known locally as the drop zone for its unpredictable currents. To most geologists, it was just background noise, but Shawn had learned to trust the whispers of the ocean. For the first several days, the dredge pulled up nothing but sand and gravel. Morale dropped. Fuel levels were falling fast, and the storms were closing in. The sea temperature plummeted to -2 degrees Celsius, icing over deck equipment and freezing the crew's hands to the rails. "It's gone," one crewman muttered during a night shift. "We're digging ghosts." But Shawn pressed on. "Gold doesn't hide from fear," he said quietly. Then, on October 3rd, everything changed. Around dawn, as the dredge hit a dense gravel layer, the sluice box began to hum. The mats shimmered faintly under the floodlights. At first, it was just fine dust, but within minutes, the color deepened. Flakes, then nuggets, then thick, heavy chunks. The box overflowed in under an hour. When they weighed the first load, it came to 1,120 ounces, nearly $2.6 million from a single scoop. The sonar scans went wild. Beneath them lay a gold field, unlike anything Nome had seen, a vast deposit stretching across 1.8 square miles of untouched seabed. The celebration was short-lived. That night, a massive Arctic storm rolled in. Winds over 70 knots, waves taller than the dredge itself. For 36 hours, the Christine Rose fought to stay upright. Waves slammed into the hull, flooding the deck and threatening to tear loose the suction hoses. Exhausted and freezing, the crew refused to abandon ship. "We're not leaving her," Shawn shouted through the wind. "If she goes down, we go down with her." When the skies finally cleared, the sight that greeted them was surreal. Gold, thick, wet, gleaming, coated the sluice trays, mats, and buckets. The storm's currents had stirred the seabed, uncovering layers even deeper and richer than before. For the next 2 weeks, the Christine Rose worked around the clock. By October 20th, their haul had surpassed 150,000 ounces, and by the time they returned to port in early November, the total weighed in at 161,480 ounces, just over $300 million in gold at current market rates. Nome's docks erupted in celebration. The story spread worldwide. News outlets called it the Christine Rose miracle, while mining journals labeled it the most significant offshore gold recovery in Alaskan history. Shawn's decision to trust his instincts and defy every forecast had turned a dying season into a legend. But to him, it wasn't about money. It was about proving that the sea still held secrets for those willing to fight for them. Yet, as the crew unloaded their final bins, the upgraded sonar feed began recording strange new returns from a deeper section of the drop zone, an area where the seabed suddenly fell away into darkness. The readings showed irregular shapes, metallic density, and sharp angles, not natural formations. Shawn stared at the data in silence, the reflection of gold still glinting in his eyes. And that's where the next chapter begins. The storm, the gold, and the glory, when the promise of one last dive beneath those black waters would lead to a discovery far greater than gold itself. The Bering Sea was in one of its foulest moods that week. Waves rose like dark walls, crashing down on the Christine Rose with bone-shaking force. The crew huddled against the cold, their faces stung by freezing salt spray. But Shawn Pomrenke stood firm on deck, his eyes locked on the horizon. He knew what lay beneath those violent waters could change everything. He'd been chasing this spot for nearly 3 seasons, guided by erratic sonar readings and geological whispers that most dismissed as fool's gold. But something in his gut said this was it, the jackpot that would make or break their future. The operation began before dawn. Chains clanked, engines roared, and the dredge arms sank beneath the waves, reaching into the dark, unseen depths. For hours, nothing. The sluice box stayed quiet, only mud and gravel spilling through. The crew grew restless. Some muttered about the weather turning worse, others wanted to retreat before the sea swallowed them whole. But Shawn refused to quit. He adjusted the suction angle, recalibrated the flow rate, and ordered one more pass over the sonar grid. Then, it happened. A soft gasp rippled through the deck. The first tray came up shimmering with fine golden dust. The next one glowed brighter, peppered with larger flakes that glittered even under the storm-dark sky. Moments later, as the sluice box flooded with pay dirt, a heavy clunk echoed, and a gold nugget the size of a fist rolled out. Silence, then chaos. The crew erupted in disbelief, shouting over the howling wind. They had struck it, the mother vein. Hours turned into days. The Christine Rose battled wave after wave, every swell threatening to rip the dredge from its moorings. Pumps failed twice, and one engine overheated. The crew worked in shifts, 3 hours on, 1 hour off, running on coffee and sheer adrenaline. But each tray brought up more gold, not just dust or flakes, but solid, dense nuggets weighing pounds each. By the end of the fourth day, their bins overflowed with nearly 2,000 ounces of raw gold. By the end of the week, they'd pulled over 14,000 ounces, roughly $300 million at market value. It was beyond record-breaking. It was history being written in real time, under storm clouds and the relentless roar of the Bering Sea. When the skies finally cleared, the crew could hardly believe what they'd accomplished. The deck of the Christine Rose gleamed with the dull glow of gold-coated mats. Shawn stood at the edge, staring out over the calm sea, his expression a mix of exhaustion and triumph. He knew this wasn't luck. It was years of grit, sleepless nights, and near disasters all converging into one miraculous moment. But what no one knew yet, not even Shawn, was that the sonar data from that same area revealed a second anomaly just a few miles north, a formation even denser, deeper, and more mysterious than the one they'd just mined. And while the crew celebrated their $300 million haul, Shawn's eyes lingered on that data map, glowing faintly in the cabin. Something told him their story in the Bering Sea wasn't over. Not yet, because beneath that silent stretch of water, another secret was waiting, one that could eclipse even the greatest haul in Pomrenke history. It began with a flicker on a sonar screen, a dense, irregular shape buried deep beneath the seafloor of the Bering Sea. Most would have dismissed it as noise, just another ghost reading from the cold, unpredictable depths. But not Shawn Pomrenke. After 30 years of mining these treacherous waters, his instincts told him this was no ordinary signal. It was too symmetrical, too dense, too perfect. He studied the scan for hours, tracing the contours of what appeared to be a deep, ancient channel, a geological gold trap, carved by shifting tides and centuries of sediment flow. The year was 2025, and Shawn was determined to make this season count. Outfitted with upgraded sonar systems, automated dredging arms, and new submersible pumps capable of working under heavier loads, the Christine Rose set course for the coordinates. The location was dangerous, 40 miles off Nome's coast, where the Bering Sea's mood could turn fatal in minutes. Temperatures dropped below -20 degrees Celsius, and the ice sheets shifted daily, threatening to crush the dredge. But Shawn had seen worse, and he wasn't backing down now. The first few days were brutal. The dredge arms clawed through layers of silt and gravel, pulling up nothing but frozen mud. Morale dropped, and the crew grew restless. Then, on the fifth night, everything changed. As the sluice mats were cleaned, a faint shimmer caught the floodlight. Gold. At first, just a few flakes, then handfuls. By morning, they were pulling up solid, heavy chunks, some weighing over a quarter of a pound each. Yet as the crew celebrated and Nome buzzed with the news of the $300 million strike, and though this chapter closed with the triumph of gold, the next began with a question that refused to fade. Had they truly found the end of the Bering Sea's treasure, or only the beginning?